When you look back on the weekend as a whole, your biggest takeaway is?
My biggest takeaway is that Atlanta is exactly as good as I thought they were and as the majority of people thought they were. So people were kind of questioning. We've only seen Atlanta play 2 series in Minnesota. They were not at CDL London. So how good are they really? This weekend proved, with a reverse sweep especially, they are exactly as good as you think. Their dominance in S&D is unmatched. Their aggression and their speed in hardpoint is unmatched. So yes, we know that the Atlanta FaZe can bleed. Certainly Minnesota proved that, but they are, bar none, the best team in the league.
You mentioned Hardpoint, of course, selling him the MVP of the entire weekend. 1.32 KD and almost 32 Hardpoint kills per 10 minutes. Very impressive, deserving of that MVP honor. But let's dive into the Minnesota matchup, Katie, because that's a very good point, right? We haven't seen this team face any adversity, really. We always talked about them, the Tiny Terrors, the youngest average age team in the league, but we haven't seen them in the trenches, so to speak, until that matchup against Minnesota.
Yeah, that's very true. And you look at them, they are an extremely young team, but they do have Crowder in their coach, who's such a veteran with so much experience. And then Priesta, of course, still a bit of a younger player, but with a lot of experience under his boat to help guide them. But in terms of Minnesota, I was extremely impressed by how Minnesota performed. I have always put them as a fourth, potentially third place, but fourth place team ever since I watched them at their debut homestand in Minneapolis. But I think the fact that Minnesota was able to deliver the first hardpoint loss and the first search and destroy loss to Atlanta, up until that point, Atlanta had not lost either of those game types, says a lot about Minnesota. Their potential is huge. Do they have the biggest names in Call of Duty? No, but that doesn't mean a thing. Those players on that team are rising superstars for sure. So Minnesota, I think, yes, you did fall to Atlanta in those semifinals, but they made a huge statement for themselves by being able to kind of take it to Atlanta the way that they did.
I will say Minnesota, to me, might have the best support in America right now, because what we saw from opening weekend and what we saw on the broadcast from the watch parties in Minnesota, that was really impressive.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I actually was out in Minnesota to kind of tour their facilities a couple weeks ago, and they have done an excellent job of creating a very open, welcoming culture there. So I'd love to see how much Minnesota Rokkr is putting into cultivating that community and creating experiences for their players and for their fans. So Minnesota, in that sense, also hitting it out of the ballpark. But we'll see. I think they can keep climbing, Arda. I think after this weekend, I might put them as the third best team in the league.